What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Colin Alcabes. And today we have a discussion about what the New York Rangers should do with the 12th overall pick. For those that did not see the NHL draft lottery, it went absolutely terrible. The Islanders won the lottery, unfortunately. The Rangers got bumped down a spot, and we have the 12th overall pick, which we have a choice to make with. If you flash back a couple months ago to the JT Miller trade, there was a pick involved, had some terms and conditions there. And currently, that pick is now in the hands of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the Rangers can either give this pick to them, or if we keep it, we give the Penguins whatever first round pick we have next year. So do we give them a top 15 pick in the 12th overall, or do we risk it, keep this one, and see where we end up next year? That's the debate. We're going to get right into that. But before we do, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. Be sure to leave your thoughts down in that comment section below. And be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. And before we even get into that, before I ask you how you're doing today, Colin, there is one other piece of news that I want to briefly discuss. It's old news by now, but we haven't had the chance to talk about it yet on the channel. The Rangers have a head coach, Mike Sullivan. He's here, made him the highest paid coach in history. I don't want to spend too much time on it because, like I said, it's old news. But my opinion is great hiring. I support it, and I'm very excited to see what he does with this team. Now I'll say, Colin, how you doing? How you feeling about Mike Sullivan as the head coach of the Rangers? And then what are your thoughts on this 12th overall pick?
I'm good. Always a pleasure to be talking Rangers hockey. Regarding Mike Sullivan, I think it's the best hire. I think it was really, for me, it was him or David Carl. In my opinion, I like those two very much. David Carl extends with Denver, and the Rangers get their guy in Sullivan. The second he became available, he went to the top of my list, and I'm very happy they were able to get a deal done. And that actually will come into why I think we should keep the pick this year. I don't know if you want to start or you want to just go into it.
You get right on into it.
I think we should keep this pick. I think you look at next year. This draft, obviously, when people talk about it, this draft is very top heavy. Next year's draft is a lot deeper. The only thing is, next year, a Mike Sullivan coach team, I feel like you're going to see a bounce back year. It's not going to. We might not be as good as we were the year prior, but we will not be nearly as bad as we were this year. Mike Sullivan comes in with a lot of experience as a head coach, and he knows how to deal with a veteran locker room and mix in the younger guys. I think he's going to do wonders for this locker room. So I think, you have to count on a bounce back year, and I'd hate to give up the 12th this year only to get a later pick next year. I think you just stick where you're at this year. I don't think you're going to get much lower than this next year. So, I'll take the higher pick this year. It depends on who's there when we pick. Obviously, I think that'll play a large part in it as to whether, once it gets a little bit closer, who's on the board, so whether they'll give it up. I don't know if it has to be before the draft that they announce that, or if they can do it during. But either way, I think no matter what happens, I think fans will always find a way to be angry about it. Whether we keep it this year and we don't hit on a guy, and next year the Penguins happen to get somebody with the pick that we got, or vice versa. If the Penguins hit on a guy this year and we take a guy next year, it'll always be looked at no matter what happens, unless the Penguins whiff, that this was a mistake no matter what move he makes, even if we hit as well. So, it's whatever, but I'm of the opinion that we should keep the pick this year, and bank on a big bounce back year from the Rangers next year, and then, give the Penguins what's going to be a later pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, knowing our luck, whatever pick the Penguins get, they're going to draft like the next generational talent with. I feel like there's no way to avoid that one. But I kind of feel the same as you in a way about keeping the pick. But the one thing that does concern me a little bit is, like you said, this draft this year is very top heavy. Now, long time fans of the channel will know prospects is my Achilles heel. Whenever I think I'm starting to learn about them, I learn so much that I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. But from what I've read, this draft is mediocre, right? The first couple guys are going to be good, obviously, as they always are. But I'm a little nervous that even by the 12th round pick, or 12th overall pick, sorry, like we're not going to get a guy who's ready to make an immediate impact, maybe like a Philip Hedl type situation where he plays down in the minors for a couple years, and then even when he makes it to the NHL, he's good. He should be on the second line, but he's not like a star. Not like your first thought of what you would think of when you think of a 12th overall draft pick. Now, as far as next year's draft goes, you say it's a lot deeper. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't done any research on the following draft, but I'd have to assume it's going to be better than this year's, just based on initial reactions to what I've seen there on the internet. So would it hurt to have a later pick in a deeper draft? Maybe this year's 12th overall is equivalent to next year's 20th in a way, just based on pure talent alone. But I don't know, because in my opinion, I do think that we are going to experience a bounce back Rangers season with the addition of Sullivan. And, hopefully just this team just figures it out in general, and whatever moves we do this off season to improve. I don't think we're going to finish as bad as we did this year. I fingers crossed, knock on wood, everything, because I say these words, and then next October we're going to be the new San Jose Sharks. That's just the way things work here on our channel. But I am banking on a bounce back season. I think whatever pick we get is going to be much later than 12th overall. It just depends on the draft class, in my opinion. I'm not sure. And how do we even guarantee a Rangers bounce back? Sure, we have Mike Sullivan here to coach, but what players is he going to be coaching? Chris Kreider has received a lot of attention already about he's already possibly played his last game as a Ranger. Mika Zibanejad apparently sold his New York townhouse the other day. I don't know if that means he's going to be moved, but it's it's a sign of something. Maybe he just wants to move out into the suburbs. Who knows? But I don't know. I feel like no one's safe. I heard earlier that even Panarin might be put on the trade block this season. That's just pure speculation and rumor, but I feel like that wouldn't be a surprise to me if that happened. I don't know what this team is going to look like. I would like to think that there's going to be a bounce back season, and which would create a later pick for us next year. But honestly, I don't know. I feel like if I had a time machine and I can check what next year's pick would be, obviously, it'd make it a whole lot easier. But I don't know. It's a tough situation either way, whether we give them this year's pick or next year's pick. The Penguins are going to be taking a rather good player from us. So I'm not sure how it's going to pan out. But speaking of the draft, one option we can do, possibly, keep this year's and trade up so we land in a spot where this pick could be monumental, maybe make a trade, move into the top 10. I don't know. How would you feel about that?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. The only reason why I think I would be against that, one, is because it would take you assets to move up, and assets is not what we have a lot of. Obviously, we've traded a lot of second-round picks over the years and third-round picks, and if you look at the teams that are succeeding, they're hitting on the guys in those rounds, and that's something that the Rangers really haven't been doing because they haven't been picking in those rounds. You look at a team like Carolina, obviously, they haven't done anything in the playoffs, where they've gotten to the cup. I mean, or won the cup, gotten to the cup, whatever it may be. But they're able to trade top-notch prospects for superstar talents without giving up their really their top-tier guys. They're giving up guys that would be first in any other farm system, and it's like they're fourth or fifth, so they're not batting an eye. They're keeping their first-round talents. And that's kind of the thing that you have to be able to do is if you're going to be trading nonstop, then you're not going to get the pick in those rounds and hit and have the cupboard that they have to be able to move guys like that for big pieces. And a name that I've been reading to fall to the Rangers potentially, and he could be considered another steal. I believe it was Brady Martin. Right now, he's projected to go 8th overall to the Kraken via Bleacher Report. But I've heard a lot about him, potentially falling to the Rangers, and he could be the steal of the first round. Obviously, based on value and where he's picked, they're saying that he could be a very, very good value at number 12. So, that's a name to look out for, and obviously they'll be watching that very closely as the draft goes on. Right now, they're predicted to get, as per Bleacher Report, they're expected to take Blake Fiddler, a defenseman. So I wouldn't be opposed to that either. The core could definitely use some help, and we have some young guys, obviously, who still have a lot of time to develop. I don't think they're looking at anything that's going to help them immediately. That's not where they're at right now. It's going to be a guy who's going to play, either go back to college or play in the minors, and I think that's good for them. I think that, if you're looking at the normal progression path for a prospect, they should get a little bit of time in the AHL before they make that jump, because it's not the easiest jump to make, as we've seen with prospect after prospect after prospect. So I think you just have to be taking what you think would be the best player available at the time. And if you have any followers like we did with Gabe Perreault, where we were able to hit on a guy who now is considered one of the top prospects in hockey, and we got him late in the first. So if you could do that again next year, maybe you take a stab at it. But if you like who's on the board at the time where you're picking, you get a lot higher of a chance of hitting on a prospect in the top 15 than you do later in the first round. So it depends. It depends on how the board falls. I'm interested to see what they do with it either way. There's a lot of different prospects that I'd be intrigued in taking. Even past us, there's guys that I like who they have predicted going further. But it's just about how the board plays the day of, because you always have some draft day surprises, some fallers, some risers. So you never really know how it's going to lay out until it actually comes time to make that pick.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I just want to say I pulled up the results of the draft lottery just because I was curious about who held picks above us. And I'm happy that you mentioned the Kraken at 8, because in my head I was thinking, like, if we want to trade up, we would have to give up assets. I'm thinking, who would want any of our assets? I'm thinking Seattle's a young team that's on the verge of becoming a playoff team. They would very much probably enjoy a player like Kreider or Zibanejad. So that's the players who we might see be moved already this offseason. So to me, that's like a realistic option, moving up to 8, not moving up into the top 3 or anything crazy, moving up a couple spaces. And then you mentioned that prospect who could potentially be at 8. So I just wanted to bring that up. I also happened to notice that the Penguins pick right before the Rangers at 11. I didn't realize that. So if we do give them the 12th overall pick this year, they then have back-to-back picks at 11 and 12, which to me sounds a bit scary. So I feel like the overwhelming evidence is proving that we should just wait till next year and give them that pick, because I don't want to see Pittsburgh with 2 top 12 picks this year. But as far as the moving up situation, I know I posed the question because I was curious to hear what you had to say. I'm also curious to know how the fans feel, so leave that in the comments. I'm just going to say my faith in the Rangers developing a prospect is so low that just don't even bother trading up. Just take what you get and hope it works out. Because after Lafreniere and Kakko and Hedel and everybody that's come and gone, fun facts. You know who the Rangers drafted the last time they had the 12th overall draft pick?
Who?
Mark Stahl. Anyways, that about wraps up today's episode of Fireside Rangers. If you guys did enjoy, please be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell to miss notification. As always, leave those comments down there in that section below. Let us know how you feel about this draft pick and the situation and how Chris Drury should handle it, in your opinion. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. But most importantly, have a good one. And let's go Rangers.